8:41 p.m. Wednesday, March 13th, 2024. I haven't posted updates for a little bit. Figured it was time. So I got the phone call Thursday that the car was ready. Went in and got the money, paid for it. Took it for a quick test spin, seemed all right. Had a little notification pop up, which we'll get to. Then I had to leave it overnight. Had been having difficulty with someone who had said they would give me a ride and then basically didn't twice. And while there may have been legitimate reasons to not give me a ride, not letting me know they weren't going to give me a ride, or in fact saying, yeah, I'm on my way, and then not, kind of irritating. So basically that stems back to the Saturday that I was doing the driver's side ball joints on the truck. And if I had not been led around and made to wait by the phone / listen for oncoming vehicles on the gravel for 2 hours, just in case that was him coming, if I'd just been able to get to town, like know that he wasn't going to be available, go across the street, ask the neighbors if I could borrow a vehicle. So what basically happened was I went across and asked them, folks across the road, I said, hey, could you guys maybe give me a ride to town? They said, well, you can just take this car that we have and bring it right back. And I was like, well, whoa, okay, cool. So I borrowed the car, went to town, got the stuff, right? Got back, got the one side done. Had to do the other side on the next day, Sunday, and that in 30-mile-an-hour straight line winds, which is, if you know anything about jacking up vehicles, jack stands, and the impact of wind on the weight of a vehicle relative to a support, when the wind blows, you can get a double or triple weight effect on a jack. So I had jack stands underneath of it, and I had a jack up just in case, and was able, regardless, to do. I got wind blasted. I had just dust all over me that day. Got the other side done. Truck was drivable. Got the new tires on Monday right before the storm. You saw the storm video. I might have posted an update to this effect, but it just kind of it blends through. So Tuesday, I drove the truck, and then I had Wednesday, Thursday off. Thursday, I got the call that the car was ready. I went and paid for it, as I mentioned. Had to leave it overnight because I wasn't expecting to get it that day. I called a couple people. Folks were busy and weren't able to get back to me. Same person that I'd already paid gas money for the previous Saturday that I never got a ride from said, yeah, I've got to do something at 4 o'clock at parent-teacher conferences. I'll get a hold of you afterward. I was like, please do. I'm probably still going to need the ride. And so one friend of mine, who's a coworker as well, I knew he was working that night, and it turned out he'd been called in early too. So if I had called him, it turns out he wouldn't have been available for a while. So, and by the time it got dark, I was like, all right, well, I'm just going to deal with it tomorrow. So then on Friday morning, the boss calls me up and says, hey, I never got back to you. Sorry, had a bunch of stuff going on. Do you still need a ride to get your car? And I said, actually, yeah. And I said, I'll come get you before work and you can take your car. And I'm like, okay, cool. So I get the car. I drive it to work. I park it. I do the dishes. I get done with dishes. And I think on that day, I ended up driving it home and taking a nap or something, then going back in, driving all night. Something wasn't quite right. There was a couple of hard shifts. The car drove, though. I did my thing. I was fairly busy, able to run, got home. Next morning, Saturday, got up, drove it. Nothing particularly funky. The error message that I kept receiving in text form on the readout on the car dash was low oil level. And I've been checking the oil, and there's oil. And, of course, I just had a transmission swap done. So I'm like, was this something the garage did? Like, how did this happen? And they claim they did nothing whatsoever with the oil. Nothing was touched. Nothing was done. Saturday, midway through the shift, it started kind of hesitating and shifting hard, and the motor was in limp mode, and I kept getting the low oil level. And then I checked the oil, and it actually was low this time. And so clearly I've got some kind of a leak as well. And I'm like, well, what in the fuck? How did any of this just magically start happening as soon as I got it to the garage? I knew I had some kind of a bad valve cover gasket in the back side of the motor, the rear bank. Upon inspection now, maybe even the front bank. So that's something to be looked at, but this is just not the cause. The other thing is, every time it would get the low oil warning, it would throw the car into limp mode. And if you've ever had a car that is electronically controlled like this, limp mode is basically, you don't get to drive sporty. It doesn't matter what you do on the pedal, it's going to accelerate at a certain rate. And then this way, you can baby the car where you need it to go without necessarily over revving and breaking stuff, supposedly. If there's an electronic system, something's wrong with your fuel, something else, it goes into like limp mode, which is like safe mode. The problem is, the way it is on limp mode, I can't really drive to deliver pizza because it's just a bit of zipping around. And you can't pull out if you don't know how the car is going to behave and all this other stuff. So I ended up swapping on a run that was out near here. I ended up swapping vehicles before getting the delivery. The customer ended up requesting a refund. There's a whole pattern of things going on too, just kind of as an aside. What I've been hearing from everyone that, was still working during the week and everything, that there was a lot of times that customers were calling and complaining about the time it was taking for their pizzas to come in because I was gone. The replacement drivers were fairly slow. My buddy is a pretty fast driver, but he's only one guy. And if everybody else that's available is slow, people are taking forever making stops before the delivery or whatever. And it's, you don't need to stop at the gas station before you deliver the pizza. So now the exception to that is like, if you've got like a bad oil leak and you're just trying to get through and you're about out, you can hear it rattling. You got to stop and get some oil and throw it in real quick and then get going. And that, 5 minutes out, what the customer don't know won't hurt them kind of thing. When I swapped out my truck and parked the car, I think maybe it was about 8 or 10 minutes total time off, plus, probably an extra 5 minutes to get out to my house and back to Flint Bottom Road, which the delivery was kind of out off Beaverdale, so it wasn't far. But we were already busy. What basically had happened, Murphy's Law kicked in on Saturday for sure. Because, see, as when the car was available and driving good, busy, it wasn't busy. It wasn't, I did okay on Friday night, but also I believe we were short a driver. And so then Saturday, it was mildly busy, but not really. Like, it was kind of slow during the day. It picked up a bit in the afternoon and evening, and right around the time I needed to swap vehicles was when it got hella busy, to where it was like we had 2 drivers, and it was and then one of the managers was driving to take runs, so technically we had 3. And with this manager not being there to route orders through the oven, things were getting made and set to the side and not put in. And we came to a point where there were literally 8 delivery tags hanging. All 3 drivers standing there going, why are there no runs coming out of the oven? And so then the manager who was driving went and took a look, and holy hell, all this stuff wasn't in. And then we got it out. And of course, pissed off customers, refunds, shit tips, etc. On top of me stressing on like, okay, wait, but I just paid $2,200 for this transmission and an extra little bit for the trailing arms. Why is my car doing this? While I'm driving my truck going, God, I'm losing money hand over fist now. Hemorrhaging money. And ended up having to drive the truck on Sunday. Did okay on Sunday. I made okay money. Did get a bit of truck sympathy tips. And, moving toward being able to recoup a bit of the money that I just spent kind of thing. A 7th is not a bad chunk and not a bad fraction to make back over a weekend. So I had pulled about $300, not counting time clock paycheck stuff, to just kind of put back in the coffers, as it were. So then Monday was going to be the day to check out this oil level message on the car, find out what's going on, and also maybe inspect a few things on the truck because I've gotten it running and I've had a chance to shake her down. I have had zero time at this point to get underneath of it, lift it up, take wheels off, make sure that things are, the bolts on the ball joints and everything that I've installed are tight, because things can wiggle and jiggle as they settle in. And you might have a little more room to tighten up and get a little bit better steering that way, a little bit better suspension. And all of these things can contribute to better gas mileage. But I haven't had a chance to do any of that because on Monday I get a message midday about needing to come in and do a driving shift because my friend and coworker had a in-law pass away. Had to go to, deal with that. So Monday was not the day off. Didn't get to do anything with the thing. Drove the truck. Did okay. I think Monday I made like $22 total for my take home. And I think the gas that I put back in to put it up to where I'd started for the day took 30. That's why I'm glad I have my truck. It's nice to have the extra vehicle, and it sure is fun to drive, but I can't afford to drive it like that, especially on slow weeknights. So I've been stressing, extremely stressing. Thankfully, it seems like I got it all taken care of without having to go confront a mechanic about standing behind their work, because all this is going to lead to is angry words, people refusing to do the right thing, threats of violence and or actual violence. And I'm really not feeling that right now. While I have to be prepared at all times for the wrong motherfucker to do the wrong thing at the wrong time and to be forced, at the same time, to have to honor kill somebody over bad auto work or whatever is not favorable. It's not something I would like to do. This is not preferable. This is the position I find myself placed in by the conduct of those around me. However, I'm not 100%, nor can I be, that any of this that I had to do today to get the car to stop having messages and run right, I don't know that any of it actually had to do with any of the repairs. I think maybe some of this was just cumulative, and it just, maybe the shocks and jumps of a bad transmission shift were enough, plus the tipping up to tow it and whatever, that, whatever it is that was wrong was made, wrong enough to really not function, because I'd not seen this low oil message before. Now, the other thing is that maybe the sensor was removed in the process of doing the transmission swap, depending on how they have to do it to access it inside of this engine bay. But they told me, and this is where it comes to, God damn it, don't make me have to do something serious over somebody just lying when they could have just been honest. Ultimately, I feel like, again, as kind of an aside here, this is like, you're going to see like my final fate be something of whatever it is, it's going to end up being something massive and huge and stupid. And it's going to end up being, people need to heed the warning, take a message from this, kind of thing. I don't want to make a video about the dude that was getting evicted from his own property that he owned outright because he couldn't afford property taxes because they destroyed the economy and fucked everybody. That he laid waste to all the process servers, first responders coming for the process servers, as well as the cops coming after that. I don't see anything wrong, right? But it shouldn't have to come to that. That's my point here, right? It shouldn't have to come to that. Oh, you're wrong, you're violent, you're angry. No. I'm trying to be in a good mood. I'm trying to be happy and cheerful and productive. But the fuckery and bullshit that I'm forced to put up with on a daily basis from any given direction at any given time, on top of the magical coincidences of all these things falling apart all at the same time. If you've been following my channel since my wife abandoned me about 5 years ago, you would know that right about this time, 5 years ago, was when all the shit started falling apart and breaking down all at the same time, plus the house flooding. It's some repetitious bullshit cycle that I consider to be a ultimately strong, like we're talking like 5 sigma evidence of simulation argument being true because of the idiotic asinine repetition of plot points in my life. There's no way it's not, like, this cannot be real. Reality containing this amount of bullshit for one person. And surely I'm not the only person having to deal with crap like this either. That it's it becomes, it's like suspension of disbelief, right? But I'm told this is real, what I'm experiencing, that this is reality. And if this is real and this is reality, my suspension of disbelief is failing because of what constitutes bad storytelling, bad script writing, repetitious overuse of tired concepts for what is supposed to be some kind of dramatic tension. But all it really comes to is nobody's going to enjoy watching what happens when I snap. Wow, is he talking schizo? He's all over it. No. This relates, right? Because the truck repairs that I just now was able to get taken care of, as I've said many times before, related to previous things from somebody else's asinine bullshit and stupid crap that nobody would do the sane or right thing. And only finally now, getting it fixed as an emergency remedy and simultaneously having a whole bunch more stupid coincidences. My nickname for the piece of shit who screwed me 2 years ago is Satan's favorite. I finally got out from under things I couldn't deal with because of Satan's favorite stealing from me. And Satan couldn't let that pass. That's what it is, right? So it seems. So anyways, I did some YouTubing and some Googling. I had much time to contemplate while doing the dishes yesterday. And came into work with some ideas and some progress made in between shifts. I had to go get a tire to replace the flat that I had, because that's the thing. I went to go to work yesterday morning and I had a flat tire on my truck. I was like, well, shit, if I air it up, I can move it and maybe I can take the car. I start the car up. It's still just rolling low oil level. And I'm like, I just checked the oil before I started it and it has oil. If I have oil, but it says no oil level, I won't have any way of knowing if something actually does go wrong with this. And it's just gotten out of major surgery. So I had to leave it parked. I had to put air into the tire and put air into the compressor and put the compressor into the trunk and take it with me to drive the truck to work just in case I need to air it up. And I was able to get to work, air it up a bit to get it to Farm King to get tires. $300 for one tire. So then I did my Googling and YouTubing while I was waiting on my tire. Ended up going to the parts store, getting a few things ordered. Went in today on my day off to get a few more things to complete toward that. So anyways, got some things ordered, headed back in by 5 o'clock. Got there. My buddy, the coworker, had taken one run, was hanging out. Nothing was up. I got clocked in. Do a whole bunch of the closer tasks and everything and get that stuff all done, and then ask my bro, hey, would you like to fly solo so I can go home? Are you sure? Yeah, man, totally. I got stuff I need to do tomorrow. My head's all kind of a mess because I'm trying not to be angry about this thing with my car, and I'm not trying to go flying off the handle about nothing and get violent if I don't have hard evidence, right? So, because that's why I keep telling people I'm a rational individual. I don't just go off on people. It's like, oh, well, he talks about if you steal from me, I'll kill you. Well, okay, I'm not a paranoid schizophrenic. I'm not imagining things being stolen from me or losing stuff and somebody fucking came on my property and stole. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that if I can prove that you're doing it, that means you're really doing it. So I've been unable to prove that there was anything intentional or even just, negligent to do with whatever happened. What I did notice is that and I was able to notice this because I got home early enough that the sun was up, and my intention was to just get home, throw the truck in park, shut it off, and then go get under the car real quick and take a look at some stuff I've had questions about, but no direct confirmation. So I got some ground truth. I was able to locate the oil pressure send unit. I was able to locate the oil level sensor. I was able to notice that the oil level sensor had wire splices directly at the plug, that this plug had been severed and reattached. So I went into town today. I got the things that I hadn't got yet. I'm still apparently on the 20th. I'll have the hydraulics for the hood, so I can just put the hood up and leave it, and not have to use a pipe to hold it up. And I got the sensors. I got stuff for an oil change, and drained it out of all the oil. I had a few spare. I had like a spare quart and a half or something from filling it up while it was low while driving it on the weekend here. And basically, after I drained all the oil completely out, I then ran a clean quart straight through it with the drain bolt out, so that I was getting clean oil coming out too, and try and get as much funk out of that oil pan as possible, just in case. While it was doing that, and the oil filter was off, the car's jacked up and the wheels off to be able to do this, I had to spend money yesterday on a dedicated type of socket to be able to remove specifically this oil pressure send sensor. So I get the harness off and unscrew the thing and inspect, and it's really not too bad. Maybe it's not where it's leaking, but I don't know. Maybe it is. Notice the connector is actually pretty clean. Definitely an old unit though. I get that out, clean up everything around it, get the new one in, got the new sensor in after fiddling around with some stuff and severing the wires at it was the little tubular crimp style ones where you put the wire in one end and you crimp the band down on the wire, and you stick the other wire in the other end and crimp down on that band, and now you're held together by contacts that are one piece to each other. And so I went and found some spare 18 gauge wire, which was a little bigger, but sufficed. That way, I give myself a little bit of extra wire. So basically, I took this 2 inches each of 18 gauge and put the splicers on either end and crimped them, and then was able to use those to give a little bit of extension so that if it ever has to be clipped again, I can clip ahead of that to, make changes. So anyways, got this all hooked up. Had to run back into town to get the wire splice crimpers because I didn't expect to need them, and it turned out that I did. One of the wires just came clean out of the connector, and I was like, well, that could be the problem. So I went ahead and replaced the sensor anyway, and this new one rotated in slightly differently than the old one rotated out, in that the location of the little clicker tab thing to get the plug out of the sensor was simply located at a more convenient angle once it was tightened in than the other unit was. So, and maybe the other unit was a factory one because it was lighter colored. This one was black, the replacement. So anyways, it was in a more convenient location, but at the same tightness. So with that in place, the wires all spliced in and taken care of. I got that in. Neighbor came over to talk to me because I'd asked him last night via text if I could use his garage floor because it's enclosed in concrete, just in case it was to rain yesterday or overnight, that it would make the ground too soft to be able to jack up and work on it. And it turned out that was not the case. I was able to do it right in my driveway, but he came by to say hi, chatted with him. He took off. I went ahead and filled the car up with oil correctly, not just like filled it up. Like I had 4.5 quarts. Got it lowered down, made sure everything was good, started it, ran it. It still gave the low oil pressure and low oil levels. So I shut the car off, disconnected the battery at the negative terminal, turned on the lights. That'll kill your whole system. Let it sit for a few minutes while I went and made a cigarette. Come back, turn the lights off, put the connector back on, make sure everything's good. I need to look at replacing my negative battery terminal at some point. I'm using an extra clamp to hold the relatively functional but still somewhat broken negative terminal on, because this car's negative battery cable's got like 2 cables that come into one crimp, and there's things that connect to, and I'm going to end up having to I've got a replacement, but I'm going to have to basically fit it on top of the existing thing and then drill some holes for the screws to go through to hold it on, and then cut off I don't know why I have notifications. The phone is on Do Not Disturb, and I get notifications anyway. Anyways, what I'm saying is reset the ECU, started the car back up, got the message one time, shut it off, took the key out, put it back in, started it. Then I hooked up the reader and was going through looking at all the live data gauges, all that stuff to see what's up. There's a number of flag codes that I was not previously aware of through the cheap reader, which means I have some things to look at, to possibly get it running a little bit smoother. Had reset the oil life meter and all this other stuff, and was all said and done. The car seemed to be running good, nothing dripping underneath of it, no oil loss. I'm going to check the level tomorrow and see what I'm at. Retighten the lugs and take it for a spin. Drove all over town, probably put 30 miles on it. And with the new ECU, of course, it needed to have some time to learn my driving. I noticed something made a noise, looked like it was sliding down the back of the car while I was driving. And once I was done with my whole trip and everything, come back home, and I went straight past the spot where this happened and was like, oh crap, that's right. I was going to look and see what that was. Turned back around, made my way back out. My needle nose pliers that I was using to work on the splicing of these cables had apparently been sitting on top of the car or on the trunk lid. And I saw it like slide down the back window in the rear view. And then it was sitting in the gutter next on the side of the road. So I recovered my pliers after an hour. Oh yeah. While I was heading to town in the truck to get the electrical connectors that I needed to splice these wires, I happened to notice something that had been on the road that I'd seen a few times driving by. I was like, is that what I think it is? And I'm looking, and I realized it was one of my old brake hoses off of the car that had been in the bed of the truck but had bounced or fallen out somehow onto the road. So I actually picked up a piece of my own used car part junk off the road before anybody else drove over it. Most of all, before I drove over it. Because I knew that at some point I'd be driving down the road and not thinking about it and drive straight over this. What the hell is that? So I went ahead and picked that up off the road too. It was interesting. So that was my day. Went to the parts store 3 times, plus had to go to the one downtown. Came to town 3 different times in 2 different vehicles. But at this point, everything seems to be, functional for what I need. So then I got home and, I stopped at the gas station, gas up, food and beer, had here. Parked everything where it needed to be. Truck's in front now. Going to take a look underneath of it tomorrow, assuming the ground's dry enough to lift it. Start checking out the ball joint nuts and everything and make sure that everything is tight. Because definitely hit some bumps and loosen something at some point. And so this is time to kind of, retune the initial setup of the front. A couple other little things here and there to look at. There's a pressure hose on the power steering at the brake booster that I want to replace at some point because it too has a minor leak that will certainly get worse. And then the car's got an evap canister that needs replaced, and a couple other minor things like I probably need new windshield wipers while I'm waiting on the hood cylinders. But anyways, the point being, the car is going to be the main vehicle again, and then I can start working on the other things because the truck has other stuff that is non-serious, non-terminal, but still needs to be gotten at. Plus the misfire. And now that I have a decent reader, I'm thinking I might be able to pin that down a bit. So, yeah, almost half an hour of this. This is my Wednesday car and truck update. I feel pretty good. Everything seems to be okay. I'm knocking on wood and counting my blessings and all that. And now just remains to kind of figure out ways to de-stress myself, because this is all kind of post-traumatic stress triggering in the mode of auto repair and crisis management, whatever else. And of course, it not stated directly, but I am pretty much alone. I have a couple friends, a couple relatives, and, sometimes they offer to help with things and whatever, but people aren't always available. And my business, my home, my welfare, my livelihood, my cats, all of it, right, is solely on my shoulders. And they get tired. So I feel good. I'm going to try and relax, try not to be paranoid about more things going wrong. And that's about all I got. Any other BS the world has to offer can go fuck itself. Because my shit's pretty well took care of, and not even God can help anybody that comes to upset or topple that. that's where we're at. So 30 minutes. Have a fabulous Wednesday. And if I have new things to report on tomorrow, I will update those as well.